Mountain bikes have evolved tremendously in the last 5 years. But before then, media and marketing had already nudged the term longer, lower, slacker beyond the edge of being a cliché. But during that time, one person in particular established a name for themselves and a company to serve riders interested in leaping ahead. Chris Porter is better known today for what was a unique approach to bike shape, one that's slowly becoming more mainstream with each model year. And whether or not you find yourself agreeing with his thoughts, they at least tickle the mind. But who is Chris Porter? Where is he from? What led him down the path to the current day, one where some label him the godfather of modern mountain bike geometry? For years, his thought-provoking ideas on mountain bikes have challenged what people believe to be right, and I wanted to know more about where those ideas stem from. Chris is immensely passionate about riding on two wheels, whether a motorcycle or a mountain bike, which is clear when listening to him share some of his experiences. Genuine emotion can be heard in his voice. That love, coupled with a desire to improve the experience further, is a large part of what drives him. While this episode, the first of two planned with Chris, was primarily to learn more about his background, there is some discussion on the technical aspects of mountain bikes in the latter half. We'll be connecting again shortly to dive deeper into some of these topics and poke the industry bear a little too. I'm AJ Barlas. Welcome to the latest episode of the NSMB podcast and my conversation with Chris Porter. Chris Porter, welcome. How's it going?
It's going really good. I won't lie, it's pissing down with rain here in the UK. As long as you can't hear it bouncing off the roof, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we're all good. We can't hear it. Has it been raining a lot lately, or you guys been getting some good weather?
We've had. It's all the British like to talk about weather. We just talk about weather all the time, and we can have winter, summer, autumn, and spring all in the same day, and that's what we've had for the last couple of weeks. For April, it was absolutely gorgeous, but kind of cold overnight. So that was pretty good for riding, actually, because it wasn't too warm. And then since then, it's just been filling up the reservoirs. So,
so you're back on the mud spikes?
No, it feels like giving up when you put the mud spikes on in summer. So no, damn it, keep to the rock razor.
Yeah,
we're on it. That's it now, summer.
Cool. Okay, so we'll start with a couple of little warm-up questions that I like to do, a bit more simple than everything else we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no worries.
So let's get into the first one. You like to ride abroad a bit, it seems. What's your favorite location to go ride bikes at?
Oh, after a year of lockdown, almost anywhere. But I love riding in Spain. Absolutely love the country, love the history and the people. And if I had to choose somewhere to ride, I normally ride in the Ainsa area, in the Spanish Pyrenees. I really like the area. There's a lot of really big loops that you can do with lots of big climbs. Some of it you can kind of uplift, and some of it is not possible. Some of it is just you got to put in the hard miles, and it's challenging. I really love it. There's flow and there's anti-flow in Ainsa. There's a lot of rock, and there's a lot of little rocks, piedrecitas, piedrecitas, and they're just designed to work like ball bearings to take you off the bike. And it seems Ainsa has got this lovely mix between sort of above the forest, rock, square corners, gravel, really technical, and then you drop down into the tree line and ride through the trees, and you've got this lovely sort of cambered flowing trails, and then drop down below the tree line again, and it gets back to the same as you were
above it
a couple of minutes ago above it. So you have this lovely mix of, you never get a full trail of hideous rocky. You never get a full trail of flow. They've all got a mixture of both. So yeah, I love it.
I've done a little bit of riding in Ainsa too, and I've only been there once, but it was a very cool introduction. I'd love to go back to there for the same things you said, like just the culture and the people on top of great riding. Like it's just so cool over there.
Yeah, who doesn't love the red wine? La Crema. I can't remember the name. It's like the tears of something. The red wine is called. It's absolutely delicious. I'm in tears every time I drink it. Anyway. So.
That was one of my questions here for the warm up. Your favorite beverage when kicking about and relaxing?
Oh, it's got to be red wine. Yeah, it's. I just love the just love the fact that in most of Europe they drink red wine for hydration. And you read the old Ernest Hemingway books, and he's traveling around Spain with a goat skin bag full of wine, and he's using it for hydration. I love that. It's just
that's so good.
I tried to buy a goatskin hydration bag for the Camelback last time I was there, but failed miserably.
No one had any for sale?
No, I wasn't trying that hard. I should have tried harder.
Yeah, I'm sure you could find one somewhere, hey?
Yeah. Excellent.
What's somewhere you haven't ridden that you'd really like to?
I guess you could say almost anywhere in the world. I try not to think about the places you haven't ridden, because when you think in that frame of mind, home is never good enough.
Yeah.
So my favorite place to ride is usually, my stock answer is from home, because then you can feel stoked about going out for a ride instead of saying, oh man, I wish I was in Whistler, or whatever,
Yeah.
all
just
these
be happy
places.
with what you got.
Yeah. There's great places to ride all over the world. And I think it's more about the people that are there riding and that you would be riding with than the places. So, yeah, which is why the racing was always so good. You just meet people from all over the world, and you're just doing laps, and whether you're on the downhill, getting on the ski lift and chatting, or whether you're taking ages to go up a long enduro climb chatting, it's great to catch up with people's stories. It's rather than going to ride in wherever, Minneapolis or Minnesota. Well, I don't know. Is there any riding there? Who knows? I don't know.
Somewhere. There's probably riding everywhere.
Yeah. But instead of going all around the world, people come to the races, and you have the whole world at the races. That's what's so good about the racing.
Yeah, it'll be good to get that back. Hopefully we see more this year.
Yeah. I hope it comes back good. Last year was a bit rubbish. It might as well not bothered, really. So
yeah, it was a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
There's potential for it to be better this year, but there's also potential for us to fall into the same trap as last year, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
What's something that you enjoy greatly that isn't mountain bike related?
Drinking red wine. I play guitar obsessively at the moment. I played guitar quite a lot when I was young, and thought I could be in a band. I could have been somebody, but and then had a long time off that, and picked it up a few years ago, and it's just been really good therapy. It's something new to learn, keeps your brain active. And if I'm using both hands while I'm playing, I also can't drink. So
at least keeps you busy.
Yeah, exactly. And I love motorbikes. They're bicycles and motorbikes, the two-wheel vehicle thing. It's proof that God loves us, I think. He let us have V-twin motorcycles and two wheels all lined up. So
they're crazy little machines, aren't they?
Yeah, I love them. Bicycles, motorbikes, anything with two wheels, great.
With that, let's move into your life a little. So, I'm going to learn a little bit more about Chris Porter.
Oh God.
This one's probably been asked before, but let's start there. Where did you grow up?
Um, Born in Accrington in Lancashire, which is the northwest of our rainy little island. It's one of the rainiest parts of the little island.
Huh.
But our parents moved us down south towards Somerset, which is a less rainy part and a bit warmer part of our rainy little island
Yeah.
in the 70s. And it was like going on holiday. It was great. It's not all grim up north, but it was less grim down south. And yeah, that's where I grew up, sort of southwest UK, hanging around Bath and Bristol.
Is that what area you're in when you got into bikes and riding?
Yeah. Started. Yeah, we had bikes. Yeah, from very young age, but we just used to try and get bikes and build them into working bikes, and you get all the chucked out bits, and you'll end up with a front end off a road bicycle and the back end off a 3-speed Sturmey Archer commuter bike, and you've got this massive chopper thing going on, held together with sellotape, and we just we just used to mess about with bikes a lot, and then BMX got invented, so I got into that, and couldn't quite afford the best one, so we ended up with one that essentially was just getting cracked every time I took it out for a ride. So I spent a lot of time at the local coach building place asking them to throw some more weld at it.
Really, hey?
Yeah.
Huh.
But,
so from the earliest days of Chris Porter and bicycles, you were like pulling things apart, fixing them,
no,
finding out who could fix something.
Yeah, I'm not sure about pulling things apart and fixing them. We were,
just putting them together.
We were breaking them. I did. Yeah, just it's when you're kids, you just ride stupid stuff, don't you? If I had the bravery and the stupidity I had then, I'd be a lot faster now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if we could switch our adult brains off for a bit longer, it'd probably help a lot, eh?
Unfortunately, I have the ability to still switch my adult brain off, and that's why I get so many injuries.
There is a downside to it.
Yeah.
If I remember right, motorbikes were a big part of your life too. How did you kind of get into that side of two-wheeled adventuring?
Well, yeah, motorbikes are, like I said, proof that God loves us, really. So the first time I rode a motorbike, it was my brother's CB100. Unfortunately, he didn't know I had it. No one else was in the house. I went off for a ride on it and came back with very little skin on my right leg, virtually no skin on both my hands.
And, you fully laid it down.
Yeah, completely. It's like, so I'm not Barry Sheen. And the rule was, you bend it, you own it. So, so although he had to carry on riding it because I wasn't old enough to ride it. So, but that's like a drug. When you get to ride a motorbike the first time, it's like a drug. So yeah, from then on, as soon as I could get one, I got a motorbike and started riding. It's good times. First trips going places on the old CB100. Oh, it's amazing. It's like it's freedom down the A roads because it's not big enough to be allowed onto the motorway.
Oh, right.
So
take all the back streets.
Yeah, 120 miles to go and watch Sisters of Mercy in the in the Royal Albert Hall, and I parked it up outside the Royal Albert Hall. I got there like a day early or something, full goth outfit, long coat, got off my motorbike, and a load of Hell's Angels decided they wanted the space.
Oh no!
Because I think that sisters thought it was probably cool to get the Hells Angels to do the security, like Altamont, man. Remember Altamont? And so they, I was a bundle of nerves as they all picked up the motorcycle and moved it into a completely different parking space.
No way.
Please don't hurt my motorbike.
You were just standing watching this?
Oh, fuck yeah. I wasn't going to get involved. It's like,
I was just wondering if you were watching from afar or you were right there.
Yeah. No, I was watching them do it. It's like, oh, no, definitely. Off you go, boys. You do what you want.
Yeah,
I'm not getting involved. It's like, hey, are you? I'm not remote. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So
how far did they move it?
Oh, they just needed that parking space, so I think they just moved it like
one slot over,
around behind the bins or something, So, yeah,
Jesus.
But no, it's all good fun riding motorbikes, and it just gets you're out traveling on a motorbike, and people want to speak to you. That's the thing. It's like when you're traveling on a bicycle or traveling on foot, people usually will speak to you. When you're traveling in a car, you're in your own cocoon and your own steel and glass bubble, and you don't have that direct connection with people. So
it doesn't seem to even extend the same way for you in the car. Like, because of that bubble, you just, without consciously thinking of it, you end up just in your bubble and you don't go out of it. Whereas even on a bicycle riding around somewhere you've never been, you see so much more, you chat to more people, you're more outgoing.
Yeah, for sure. And, and it's the whole thing about in charge of your own little space. People who are perfectly normal, lovely people, walking, driving, talking, drinking, social situation, turn into dickheads behind the wheel of a car. It absolutely turns, and quite a lot. It's not like a small minority. So many people. It's just like, oh, dude, a minute later, it won't matter. Just chill. Says the guy that also has road rage. So
yeah. We all suffer from it, I think. So, like, you got into motos before you even were old enough to drive one. It was an interest to you.
Yeah.
Did you flow down that path? Like, did that become an obsession in the sense that you wanted to make it a job or anything like that?
Oh yeah, no, it was a job. As soon as I could afford a decent bike, I ended up working as a dispatch rider. So I was delivering parcels on the motorbike, and that's pretty cool. Some days are the most perfect days. You'll be picking up 3 or 4 different parcels in one town, and you get paid for all 4 of those. It's not like if you pick up 4 parcels from one place that you get paid once, but sometimes you pick up 4 from different people and you drive 150 miles to London across the South Downs, and you take the swooping roads, or you go to Plymouth to the printers down there, or North Wales to the printers up there. And some days it'd just be perfect, beautiful sunny weather, swooping around on your motorbike, getting paid to deliver parcels. And then some days it's just fucking shit. It's like you wake up at 5 and it's battering down, and it's sleet, and your bike breaks down, and it's just like. Or my favorite was I was on a borrowed bike. It was a CX 500. They're horrible machines, and I was delivering something into Bristol, and coming down through the outskirts of Bristol, I'd just ridden around some car and into the next one, and I heard this massive crash behind me as I was trying to wind my way through the traffic, and then saw the pannier from the rear of the motorbike overtook me in the ditch on the side of the road. Oh shit! So, and it's just some days are good, some days are bad, but it was kind of cool because you can make a living out of it, but you're just wearing your bike out. You just you love your motorbike, and you're just wearing it out by riding it every day. So
yeah, I guess your maintenance levels would be pretty high if you're doing 150 miles here, there, and everywhere kind of
yeah,
thing.
I mean, I did start being a cycle courier in Bristol, and
Huh.
it
Was this
was
before the motorbike?
no, it was during the
After?
same period. It's like
Huh.
this could be a good way to get in shape, and then it was. It was even more tightly knit than the motorcycle guys. The
Mm-hmm.
motorcycle guys, if if you really get on with your controller and you're prepared to do the last job on a Friday night in the rain and pull him out of a hole, then he'll reward you with the good jobs next Monday.
Yeah.
Whereas, as a beginner on the bicycle, you're always going to be behind the good lads for a long time. So in the end, I just got the motorbike out and started delivering with that instead for the same company. So yeah, just you've got to do what you got to do to keep going, haven't you, to survive.
So is this all sort of out of high school thing?
So high school. So we got a set of exams up to 16 years old, and then we have another set of exams up to 18 years old, and then from there we would normally go to university. But I applied for university for art school for fine art, but didn't get in. I did another couple of years just doing foundation courses to build up a portfolio of art, but mostly it was so that I could hang out, meet girls, play the guitar, and be in a
Relax.
band. Yeah, making loads of noise with the art school boys. I think that was the undertones made that one, but yeah.
What was your medium that you enjoyed?
Uh, I
Or what is your medium that you enjoy?
it was pencil for me. I can't deal with
Okay.
color. You
Mm-hmm.
paint. There's too many options. I'm like, oh my god, this. I have a breakdown if you introduce a color. It's like black and white's enough for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And
why
just like lead, are you doing all the lead shading and stuff? I studied art in school too,
yeah,
but
yeah. Oh, I was doing all sorts of yeah. I used to just do pencil mostly or charcoal,
yeah,
and sometimes use white paint with the pencil and the charcoal. So it's all like
yeah.
blacks and whites, and yeah, I didn't deal with color very well.
Did you end up finishing university with
No, I
an
didn't
art
get
degree?
in. I didn't
You
get
didn't get
in.
in.
No, obviously, clearly wasn't good enough. I was more interested in playing guitars than. But uh, it's that's fine. It's the way that I was happy riding bikes and playing guitar and drinking red wine and
Even then, you're into
yeah.
your red wine from an early
Oh
day.
no, then no, geez, no, we were. Oh no, when we were in the band, we had. Maybe I shouldn't say this because maybe the owner of the bar is of the club is still around. But no, we had our bass player was he was sound engineer in a studio that was on the fourth floor of a big old warehouse building in Bristol, and you
Mm,
had a so you had the recording studio in the roof area, you had a chill out club area below, a more noisy bar area, then
mm,
down to the first floor you had a full on club, doof, 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 doof.
yeah.
And then down in the basement you had the practice rooms. So we would go in the evenings to the practice rooms, which were these amazing sort of almost like wine cellars, like arched cellars. The noise in
Wow.
there was amazing. It's amazing I can hear it all, the amount of
Oh,
volume we
right.
put into those little stone rooms. But of course, being the sound engineer from the fourth floor, he had the keys to all the floors. So we did used to get through a lot of Jack Daniels. So once it had gone out of the stock room into the bar, it's not counted quite as well as it was in the stock room.
Oh, damn.
So yeah, Yeah, we got through a lot of Jack Daniels. Yeah.
Whatever's easy, hey?
Ah, if it's free, who's not going to?
Yeah.
It made me look like Slash, but it didn't make me play like Slash. That's for sure.
So it sounds like music was a massive part of your life in the early years, and you
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
be a musician. What
yeah.
happened there?
I just wasn't good enough.
Well, I mean, it's hard to become a professional musician, right?
Oh
So
shit, yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It's really difficult. We did a few years gigging, and it was quite good fun. And yeah, just you, you've just got to have amazing stamina and be able to keep going. And in the end, there was only me that had a job, and
huh,
all the rest of the guys were like licking about doing not much, and just felt like, oh, do you know what? I've tried this now. Give it a
you felt it
miss.
was time to move on.
Yeah, so I went and got a job in a bar in Italy. So
Huh.
in fact, I got a job on a building site in Italy first, but the guy didn't pay me, and it was a while before I'd even realised that. Because in Britain, it's normal that you would work a couple of weeks in hand and then you get your paycheck, and it's not normal in Italy. And by the time I realised, it's like, oh shit. So I've been taken for an absolute little skinny English kid sap, and
Wow.
but it was quite good because it meant I had to go and have a look at I had to go and do a lot of things in a lot of different offices that I wouldn't have done, trying to get the money back through the
Yeah.
sindicato, which was
Shouldn't.
the union. But didn't work. But it forces you outside your comfort zone. You learn a bit more Italian, and in
Yeah.
the end, I just got a job in a bar with everyone else. So and that was pretty cool.
And you spent a while there in Italy.
Yeah, I think did a season like 6 months or something.
Okay.
So yeah.
Huh. And at this
So
point, had you put down the guitar, or you were still playing it for fun on your own?
no, I didn't take guitar to Italy, but there were plenty of other distractions.
Yeah.
And we bought ourselves a couple of Piaggio Ciao 50cc motorinis, and
Yeah.
I decided mine wasn't quick enough, so I had it in bits on the kitchen table with a needle file and riffler file, and trying to get more airflow through the ports on the two-stroke, and bolted it all back together. It ran like an absolute dog. And then
Even with all your effort.
oh yeah, and then I took it round to this old boy that was local mechanic, ancient, like in his 80s, and he was just real. He just took the spark plug out, looked at it with his like glass bottom glasses, gave it a tap with a hammer, put it back in, and it ran sweet
No
forever.
way.
Yeah, it was the fastest Motorini in Rimini. Oh, it was amazing. Yeah,
So
full.
again, you're sitting there customizing your stuff to try and make it work better. Like
Yeah,
this is a trend that's been in your life since you were a young fella.
yeah. This is a theme, I suppose. If you put it like that, yeah, yeah. But it didn't make the Motorini handle any better. But
Probably made it worse, eh? Like it's too fast for how handling was.
oh, even a fast Piaggio Ciao is not something that's going to give you the willies. It could be the fastest Piaggio Ciao in the world, and it's still not going to be intimidating.
And I guess
Mm.
you're coming from riding a few more crutch rockets around, so it really felt pretty mellow.
No. At that time, I hadn't ridden any sports bikes. The first
No.
time I rode a full size motorcycle was in Rimini. There was this American dude called Paul. He was cool as fuck. His parents had moved him back to Italy, so they were like Italian New York. It's like he had the
Yeah.
accent. It was like proper.
Yeah.
What Big Joey? He's got the accent, and but he was so cool, and he had a Yamaha Tenere, a 600. cc single cylinder trail bike. But his parents moved him over there because he was getting in trouble with drugs and motorbikes and things. So he just started getting in trouble with drugs and motorbikes and things in Italy instead. But it's less of a problem, I guess. But he let me have a go on his motorbike, and it was on the pavement, I remember. And he said, really gentle, letting the clutch out. Give it a little bit of revs and then let the clutch out. And I gave it a little bit of revs and then let the clutch out, and it just fucking reared right up. And I'm wheeling down the middle of a busy pavement in Rimini. And then I pulled the clutch in and it came down a bit. And then I just let the clutch back out and it come back up. And I was like wheeling like this, completely out of control down the pavement as people were diving off both sides into the street.
Oh, gosh.
And, that was a baptism of fire, but it's like, this thing is so cool. I want to be able to figure that out. Yeah.
So that was the hook.
Yeah. The Piaggio wasn't fast enough to pull wheelies. No.
So you're fully into motos, you're getting more into motos. Am I right in understanding that you worked in media with the motorcycle world as well?
Yeah. I got a job with a magazine called Fast Bikes. It was really funny. I just decided, look, I can do layout, graphics. I can do that. I was a fine artist, dude. I can do that. Yeah. So I got myself a little evening class, and whilst I was doing it, I made myself a little CV based on a magazine article. So it was like an interview with myself. So, right. Chris, you've pissed it up against the wall. What have you been doing with your life? And so then I was like, put little pictures in. It was like a question and answer interview. And it was...
And pictures that you were drawing?
No, photographs of motorbikes and stuff, me on motorbikes going places. And I used that to punt around the motorcycle magazines. But the job I really wanted was the job at Fast Bikes, which didn't exist. They had a graphic designer who had some skills, but the worst of his skills was the fact that he was into the coke, so he really couldn't. So he could do things quite nice one day and not so good the next day. And
he's a bit erratic.
Yeah. So not that I knew this until I met him, mind you, but anyway, so I thought this magazine needs another layout artist. I can do that. So I sent him the CV, and the editor rings up, and what, unbeknownst to me, the week before, he's put an advert in the media press looking for staff for the magazine, but not for a layout artist. But he rang because he was quite interested. He saw it and thought that's fairly interesting.
It's grabbed some attention when it's different to everything else, right?
Yeah, and we had a really great chat. And he said, "Oh, come on up next week, and we'll have a chat, see what it's about." Oh man, can't come up next week. I'm off to Wales, and he immediately thought, "Oh, that's it. Off to Wales to get his head together. Full fucking Led Zeppelin hippie. He's going to be absolutely no good in the central London. He'll be fucking rubbish." So every time I rang up after that, he'd say, "No, I'm not here." And you could almost hear him in the background going, "No, I've retired. No, I'm not here anymore. No." Tell him I've moved to Poland. You hear him in the background almost. And then one day I rang, I don't know, it must have been 2 months later. I thought, this is the end of this. But I rang, and one of the guys said really clearly, he's at Bruntingthorpe, which is like a proving ground where they go to do top speed tests and take photographs and stuff. I thought, fuck it, I'll go up and meet him. So I just got on the motorbike, got to the security checkpoint outside Bruntingthorpe, and just said to the bloke, "I'm with the Fast Bikes crew. Can you tell me where they are?" And he goes, yeah, they're over there, mate. There you go. He might have been from London. I don't know. Over there, mate. And so I just rocked up, shook him by the hand, and said, "It feels like you've been avoiding me, but..." And then, so we had a chat, and he gave me a rolling interview, which was basically, can he ride to keep up with us going back to London?
Yeah.
And that was it. So he said, yeah, come tomorrow. You can start tomorrow. So that's pretty much what I did. I did
So
that.
what did you start as there?
Yeah, exactly that. I thought I was starting as layout graphic design artist, but because I told him you fluff yourself up in your own CV, don't you? Yeah. So first job he gave me a Kajiva Elephant motorcycle, which is like a big fat trail bike from the early 90s, because I told him I was so into the trail bikes. And he said, right, back brake on that's not working. Ride it down to the office in Woking, get it fixed, ride it back, and then give me 4,000 words on that. So it's like, oh, shit, that's the first day. And then I told him I speak Italian. So he said, right, if you look on the Rolodex, you'll find Massimo Bordi's number. He's the general manager at Ducati in Italy. Ask him for a 888 SPS, if you wouldn't mind, which is like, asking Enzo for a Ferrari F40 to test. It's like, so, Sì, sono Chris della rivista inglese Fast Bikes. And you hear at the other end, they go, oh, fucking fast bikes. But it was good. So, and then at the end of that day, so that day hasn't finished yet, at the end of the first day, he says, I haven't had my copy from Barry Sheen yet. Can you get on the Rolodex? Find his number, give him a ring, and if he hasn't got it ready to fax, get him to dictate it to you, and you can write it down. And it's like, oh my fucking good God, can you ring Barry Sheen? He's God.
He's your hero, right?
Yeah, it's like, so from nowhere, from a standing start, you're like, right, there you go, fix that motorbike, ride that motorbike, give me 4,000 words on how that motorbike rides. Then speak to Massimo Bordi, try and get a motorbike for me. Then you're on to, and that's in amongst all the other stuff that I was doing on the first day. And it's like, that's the best thing about being dropped in the deep end. Sometimes you float and you go, yeah, why would I want to just plod along like I was before? Why would I want to plod along? Yeah. So I finally did meet Massimo Bordi. He came for a Fast Bikes Christmas party. Am I speed talking? Does it sound like
this is good.
It does sound like I've had a flipping snort of coke as well. I'm about 4 hours away from the last caffeine shot as well. But anyway, so Massimo Bordi, general manager of Ducati. Everyone was fawning around him at the office. Oh, Massimo. And everyone was really pleased to have him around because he'd come to the Fast Bikes Christmas party.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal, dude. And so anyway, I was trying to find out who had delivered the pages to the repro house, and somebody said, no, they're still there. And it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, they've got to be there by like 5 tonight. And it's 5 to 5 or something. So I just jumped on the first motorcycle, which was a Ducati 900 SS with the courier bag on to drop the pages off to the repro house. Come to the first corner in front of a whole raft of courier motorcycles sat outside drinking pints of beer as they've finished for Christmas. Fucking dropped it straight in front of them. Ducati motorcycle scratched down on its side, flew. I was really hauling, and it's scraping, and I can see the sparks coming off it. And fucking bastard. So anyway, I got the pages to the repro house, limped the motorbike back, So I had to be the one to tell Massimo Bordi that I've just crashed
Oh
his
no.
test motorcycle. But it was his own fault for specking the Michelin A59X plastic front tyre. To this day, if it was a decent tyre, I'd have
You don't
made it.
reckon it would have gone down?
No, I probably would have. I'd have just gone down quicker.
Damn. That's quite the intro to the I guess the journalistic world, hey?
Yeah.
Was that all in the first year? Like was the
Uh,
Christmas party that year too?
Probably, yeah, yeah. No,
Wow.
it was absolutely high octane. You know, there was probably only four of us, and we were doing 4 or 5 of us. We were doing 3 magazines. You know,
Wow.
we'd be like throwing words out like 1,000 words an hour, and it on the, you know, chucking, throwing words out like crazy, and yeah, just getting stuff done and just having a good time and pulling wheelies and doing burnouts and yeah, being given new motorcycles by other people. So how how can you not like that?
Yeah. But it's funny that you went there. Well, you were applying to be the layout guy,
Yeah.
and here you are actually like writing and testing. And did you find it more enjoyable doing that than what you were originally hoping to do?
Yeah, didn't get to do that much of that. I mean, some of the test riders at the magazine were actually really fucking good riders. You know,
Right.
national and international standard riders. Um, One of the guys that had worked there ended up, you know, racing at MotoGP level and qualifying. I think his best qualifying was a fifth. You know, it's like really fast guys. So
Right.
yeah, no, but I could pull wheelies. So that was that. That's the thing, though. It's like you do what you can do, and no one no one can ever take away from me the feeling of that big sports bike wobble as the front wheel starts to slow down. It's been up in the air so long that it's starting to wobble a bit, and you let the front wheel down,
Huh.
and you've got that screech as the front tire hits the tarmac like an airplane landing. Oh, amazing! I love it. It's just
So you don't mind a good wheelie even today on the motos?
loves back wheel.
Yeah, totally. So how did you move from that into the bike world? Were you just
Well,
interested in bicycles still, or
yeah, no, yeah, definitely. At the time, I tried to get sorted for racing motorcycles because I thought this would be an amazing opportunity while at the magazine.
yeah?
Um, couldn't, I wasn't good enough at blagging stuff to get it sorted. So in the end, I bought a mountain bike and started racing that.
Huh.
And so that's what I was doing.
What did you see that made you want to do that? Like what you're like, oh, I'm not going to be fast enough to do the whole race thing on the moto.
No, no, it's
What
not.
was the visual that was like, I'm
No,
going to
it's
go race mountain bikes?
just literally cost.
All
You
right.
know, the idea that I was going to buy a motorcycle to go racing meant that I had to buy a van to go racing with a
Uh-huh.
motorcycle, and I had to have enough spares to make that last a weekend every weekend that you go racing. And you're going to have to do, I can't remember how many you had to do. Something like 5 races before you even lost your novice jacket, before
Right.
you're even, you know, allowed to race with the big boys. Um, So in the end, I just started racing mountain bikes because it seemed like the cheaper option, and and made enough money with the mountain bikes to start racing motorbikes when I reached 40. So
Huh.
yeah, it got there in the end, you know. But
It all just went a different way around.
yeah, yeah. But
Did
yeah, the mountain bikes were always there. The bicycles were always there all along. It's I was using them for commuting around London when I was working on the magazine and riding around. I had an old GT Timberline, and would use that. Yeah, it was always there in the background, but just couldn't afford to race the motorbikes, so decided to do downhill, and that's where all the bicycle businesses started from. Yeah,
Was when you started racing.
yeah,
So
exactly that.
what mountain bike did you buy to go racing on?
A GT Avalanche, steel Avalanche, Mag 21 forks, 60 mil. Amazing. It was the shortest bicycle you've ever seen in your life. Then I bought one of those. Do you remember the Veliki Iron Horse? Do you remember that thing? Like
I
a
don't
bend in the
know.
middle?
I'll
no,
look
it
that
was
one up.
guys like Dave Cullinan used to
yeah.
race them from like back in the day.
Wow.
God knows how they used to make the thing go around corners. I hated it. I
Cully
bought
was
it.
pretty good at cornering.
It was pretty good, yeah. But how much better could he have been if he had a bicycle that didn't bend in the middle? It was the biggest piece of shit. But yeah, I got rid of that almost as soon as I bought it. But
Oh wow.
yeah, it took ages until bikes got better. But yeah.
Did you find that your your motorcycle world helped you understand what was working and what wasn't on the bikes even then?
No,
Like
I
that
think
flex you knew was not a good thing.
yeah, no, I think it's from the motorcycle world, which is that's the thing that's different to the bicycle world. If you're having a problem getting around a corner, you can solve it by being a better rider,
Right.
but you can also partly solve it by making the motorcycle fit you better or
Right.
fit your style better. And with the bicycles, mountain bikes, any problem that a rider has, they pretty much always blame themselves. Didn't get around that corner well. Oh, that's my fault. I got that wrong. And the truth is, if the bicycle can be made to handle well and fit that person, they'll get it right more often. Because guys of my age, let's say 55 this year, if you haven't learned how to do what you're doing by now, you're not going to learn it by being told to drop your heels, push your ass out, look round the corner, dig your elbows, this, that, and the other. There's a certain amount of stuff that you can be taught to make things easier, for sure. But some of the blame has to lie with the bicycle. And that's what I thought. And I guess the reason I thought that was because I'd ridden so many motorcycles,
Right.
and some had been really sweet in some places and shit in others, and some had been really shit in others and sweet in other places. And then you get some that just are diabolical, and because you're trying to write a review or trying to add a second opinion to a review or whatever it is that you're doing, you're looking for the reason why. If it's really nervous in that space between straight line and fully leaned over, you're trying to find out whether it's the tire profile or whether it's the geometry of the motorcycle or whatever it is. You'd be trying to find so that you could point to it and say, I think it's this.
Rather than just say, I just couldn't ride that section like that.
Yeah, because that in the end you get a lot of that with the bicycle stuff. People go, this bicycle is amazing, it's really fast, it's amazing, and you just go, well, that suits you then. So those settings. So the other one that you said was shit, that's almost exactly the same shape and has almost exactly the same kinematic, you probably just didn't check the tire pressures. It might be something as simple as that, because people don't generally check
totally.
things, and so when you get accidentally, when that combination of all the adjustments that are on a bicycle, from seat position to seat angle to pedal platform height to crank length to chain ring versus anti-squat, all of these possible combinations, before you even start drawing things, big things like head angles and bottom bracket heights and stuff, when all of those possible combinations come good, it can feel amazing. But you can similarly make it feel pretty rubbish if you get the combinations all wrong.
That's a way of thinking about bicycles that not many people do, and maybe that's changing now. Maybe it isn't. But
No, I think what's happening now is I don't know what you're like in the States, but there's a huge acceptance of coaching as a way of learning how to go faster. Some of that's come from the motocross world and the supercross world, where rider coaches have been a thing for a while, and a lot of the racers in mountain biking, and I'll get shot down for this, are wannabes for the supercross and the motocross, I think, and they see that and they get the rider coach. And but what it has done, the positive thing it has done, is it's meant that coaching is a thing in our sport now, which is quite good. But instead of, and you also have, from the other side, you have the electronics with the shock whizzes and the data login and all of this kind of stuff. And none of those things are focused on the actual rider that's riding the actual bike. So very few of the coaches are going to look at the guy and say, "You look really uncomfortable. Let me see if I can make you more comfortable before we even start trying to get you to get into this weird yoga position."
Right, so a bit of setup stuff.
Yeah. So let me see if I can find out what it is that's wrong with what you're doing with the bicycle. And, it can be simple things like brakes are too far down, so you're relying too much on your forearm muscles and your thumb when you're trying to brake because your hands are rolled right round. It can be simple things like that, or it could be that your bars are rolled too far back, like Harley Davidson, so whenever you load your hands, your elbows come in, and all of these things can put your body in the wrong position on the bike, so you've got less room to move around. And a shock whiz is never going to tell you that.
Yeah, true.
A shock whiz will just tell you where your suspension was. It won't tell you. It'll just adjust the bike to suit the shit riding position you've got. Instead of looking at the shit riding position you've got and trying to find a way of saying, let's see if we can do this. Let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can change this. And, not everyone's going to enjoy exactly the same riding position or riding experience, but you can definitely tell when you're working with a customer one-to-one when that customer is feeling more comfortable, because they just look better on the bike straight away.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they've learned how to ride, straight away.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do the things you're asking me to do now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got room. I understand that. I can feel the front wheel. I've got amplitude to move backwards, forwards, up, down. I don't have to be in this stupid yoga position. And or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is, that's not something many people do. That's not.
I was going to ask you, are there any coaches that you know of who are kind of going that way or have completely gone that way that you feel are doing a good job?
That there are a few in Britain who are doing a really good job, to be fair, and there are a few companies doing a really good job too, and starting to understand all of that, because every idea has its time, and just the fact that we're talking about this now means this idea has already got its time, and there'll be other people already around the world independently of us doing exactly the same things as we're doing with riders and watching them and adjusting things. Just because we're doing it, we're doing it for our own reasons, because we want to create a really good experience for our customers. But that doesn't mean there aren't other people independently doing the same thing,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's get into that a little bit. Let's I guess we'll start with Mojo, because that was the first thing before you did the Geometron bike stuff, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up starting Mojo?
Well, that was from when I was at the motorcycle magazine, but just was burnt out, was doing like stupid hours, 17-hour days some days, and the monthly deadline was just crushing, and I just decided I needed to go out and do something else. And I was racing downhill at the time, and there were a lot of things in the States that you could buy that you couldn't buy in the UK.
Oh, wow.
There was nobody bringing them in. And
what's an example?
There was all the Reese Racing and White Brothers upgrades, and Judy cartridges and long travel kits, and people doing replacement shock absorbers for popular models as well. So if you remember the Specialized that Jason McCroy and Todd Tanner rode, that amazing steel tube thing with the walking 4-bar link thing, they had a coil shock in that, but you could only buy the bike with the air shock.
Right.
So that was one of the first things I bought. I bought coil shocks from Taiwan in the right length, and got some laser cut linkage pieces that I could replace, so people could have that sort of red tubed, steel tubed Specialized FSR designed bike with a coil shock in. And
were these other racers or just general people that you ran into that wanted it?
Other racers and crazy early adopters. I think one of the first customers was a guy called Nibs Kellett. To this day, I still don't know his real first name. It was Nibs. And he had his first son was called Ty, after an American desert motorcycle racer. And then his second son was called Todd, after Todd Tanner from that Specialized team, because Nibs had started racing mountain bikes as well. We were already in the old guys category by then. He was a couple of years older than me. He was one of the very first customers to come up. I think he got the fork stuff first, to extend the travel on his fork. And now his son Todd is racing motocross at world level.
No way.
Yeah. And his son Ty is, I think he's still filming the World Motocross Series. I haven't spoken to him for a couple of months, actually, and whether there's any world level racing going down at the moment, I don't know. But so he was one of the first.
So had you called it Mojo at that point, or were you just sort of bringing these things in? You had?
No. We just decided that Mojo Suspension Hoodoo was a good name, and I scribbled a little logo, and that followed us for till 2017, really. So that original little scribbled logo.
So when was this? Was this like 99, 2000?
Late 90s. So started it in 96, and then ended up working from a mountain bike magazine for a couple of years in between, and had my brother-in-law run the company for a while. And that was so at the very beginning of Dirt magazine. The publisher took me on as technical editor, and one of the other distributors didn't like the fact that I was going to be technical editor. So they employed a different self-employed suspension expert. Don't see the difference myself, but I'd done a load of work for that launch issue,
right?
Because I knew how to get stuff done. I'd worked at that motorcycle magazine.
Yeah.
I knew all the photographers. I knew that you just had to get off your ass and do it. And just they were, the people they were talking about interviewing. It's like, no, well, why don't you interview Nico Vulliot? That would be really interesting to me. Why do you want to speak to some guy from Kent? It's like I don't, but anyway, I had a whole raft of pages and stuff already done, stuff written, photographed, and they hadn't paid me at that point, and they'd asked, well, can we have that stuff that you've done? I was like, yeah, if you pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, you did it for us. Yeah, but I'm doing it for money as well,
Yeah.
So in a sense, I had like a magazine's worth of ideas and a portfolio of magazine articles and pages to tout around.
Yeah.
And I ended up touting it around to the publishers that I knew from the motorcycle days to try and get a magazine off. The idea was it was going to be called Descent, or misspelt to be French, descente, so that you could, just so you could kind of get desceso in Italian, it's descente in French, and descent, and it was kind of try and make something more international for the racing and the downhill, and got pretty close to getting that up and going. But the publisher that was going to do it was already in work at different publishers, and there was a little bit of the eggs. All the chickens had to be in line before, and they didn't quite fall into line to allow him to give up what he was doing.
Right.
So he got me a job at the publisher on their mountain bike magazine. So, and then the first interview we did, I just literally jumped in the car and drove down to interview Nico. So it's like, yeah, this is how you do
Just
it.
Get it done.
Yeah. I didn't even have any mountain bike kit, that we could use, because, it's like no branded kit, nothing. So it's like, I just rode down. I think we had a photograph on his bike, and I was riding my old motorcycle off-road helmet. It's just so that I could get the photographs done. But
wow.
Yeah, good.
Did you have Nico in a Rolodex or something, or you drove to his house?
Well, no, you just ring people and find out. If you're at a magazine, you can kind of get that done, can't you?
Yeah.
But it's different now because there are so many different media outlets.
And you can connect with people in so many different ways too.
Yeah. But he was really cool. He's really thoughtful, and he's really into the technical.
Yeah, he is.
Even back then, even back then he was really into it. So.
Oh, you hear stories about like tying like wire around spokes so that he could run the spokes loose enough to get the feel he wants out of the wheels, but not have the wheel just disintegrate and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's it. They did a lot of stuff, him and Bossard, who was Boss Suspension, but also that's who ran the Sun factory team.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to organise myself a go on one of the factory bikes.
Yeah.
At a French round at Pralou in France, and organised it with the marketing lady. She thought that was a really good idea. When I got there, Olivier thought it wasn't such a good idea, and I just had the fucking customer bike. Oh, cheers, Olivier. But I did spend a really good couple of days hanging around with the Sun factory team, and at the event was Jean-Michel Bayle, who was one of the foremost French motocrossers who the first wave of Europeans to come to America to race motocross, and that was late 80s, early 90s.
And he was there riding mountain bikes.
Yeah, and he was pretty fucking good at it as well, to be fair. And they had Mikhail Pascal, Cedric Gracia. It's the full team, and Caroline Chausson.
I was going to say, and Caro.
The full team was there, like loads and loads of them.
Wow.
Philly, was there another guy called Philippe? Anyway, thousands. And then there's me riding along on one of their ex-team bikes, clunking along in the background. It was ace. Did a couple of runs with Nico. It's ace.
Yeah. Keep up?
No, God, no. He was following me down, actually, because I think he was just keeping an eye just to say, is this guy for real? Is he just a joker? And he actually asked Olivier for a different spring rate when he got to the bottom. So I thought, maybe it's because he's going so slow that he's had to go for a different. But no, he is an absolute bloody legend.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to that guy for sure.
I'm sure he'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll reach out.
Yeah, I think my old cards are probably out of date by now.
So you started Mojo in the mid-90s then?
Yeah.
And you were bringing in stuff from Taiwan, you said?
Yeah. Just went straight to one of the factories in Taiwan. But then we started doing more shock servicing and tuning. So we were then getting shocks from people that had blown up.
Yeah,
they had
which
nowhere
was a lot
fixing
back
it.
then.
Yeah. I mean, the GT RTS 1 with that lovely no-lean shock that went down through the seat tube with the long eyelet extension. Beautiful little shock, but yeah, it did had a propensity to blow its guts out. And I just used to, so I was just measuring O-rings and measuring seals and buying seals one at a time here and there, and buying stuff from American suppliers if I could get them. And the Fox thing started because one of the British racers had an Alps 4 shock, I think it was, one of the really early air shocks, and it'd blown up, it wasn't working. The national champs was the week after, and he sent it to me and said, can you fix it? And I pulled it apart, and I absolutely could not figure out how you could do it without doing it in an oil bath. And I thought, this is stupid. Nobody's going to be doing this under an oil bath, are they? This seems like, fucking hell, there must be an easier way to do this. I must be missing something. So I actually rang and spoke to the tech guys in Fox, and they said, you do it in an oil bath. It's like, for fuck's sake. So from there, for the next 10 years, it's like hands are always smooth because your hands are always in a bath full of oil. And as soon as you start doing an Alps 4, the phone rings. So,
right.
Yeah. But, and that started the relationship with Fox, which, carried on till 2017 when they'd basically gone a bit more corporate. So we were,
went separate ways.
Yeah, hoofed out. So, but that's quite good. The time had run its course. That time is gone, and it's good to do different stuff now and again. If you do the same stuff all the time, you just end up doing the same stuff all the time. And
Is that why when you're working on stuff, you are always looking at ways to do it differently and improve it?
No, that's just because I'm riding with the youngsters all the time, and they're faster than me, but I've got to be able to try and keep up. So you ride a bicycle and you go, there's still lots of places where I ride a bicycle, even with my limited bravery, skill, flexibility, strength to weight ratio, etc. I've got a lot of weight to strength ratio for sure, but the other way around, maybe not so. And there's still a lot of times when I'm riding bicycles and I go, come on, you piece of shit, go faster. So if I can feel that, then, that if I can tailor that bike to go faster in those places and not damage too much the handling in the places where I'm already at the limit of my bandwidth, then you're hopefully making things go better.
What was the process getting there? Like, how did you get this mind for picking apart things? Is it just tons of years pulling things apart and looking at things and reverse engineering, or is there people you learnt from?
No, I think it's just trying to when you race, you have a certain amount of time to get faster from when you arrive to the point where the race starts, whether that's a motorcycle race against other people, or whether that's a downhill race against the clock, or whether that's a ski race against the clock, or a running race against other people, whatever the race is, from where you come to look at the course to when the flag drops, if you like. You've got a certain amount of time to learn how to go faster. And that's a process. It's part of physical, yeah, for sure. There's a lot about learning how to ride that track better. But then there's a mechanical process also, allowing the vehicle to go faster over the ground, or better through the turns, or allow you to set up better on the entrance to the turn so you can carry more speed through, or whatever it is that you want to try. So racing gives you the structured testing process. And there are not many companies in mountain biking that go through a process in that linear fashion, because when the product managers run the show, they just ask for something new. So you never get to solve the problem for the poor 50,000 saps that bought last year's product that didn't work, so that you end up with a fix for that product that can carry on to this year. They just order a new product. We don't want that one anymore with that XYZ Wizzy thing on it. We want a new one, and we want it to have this name and this amount of adjusters. And so you tend to see that the problems are designed out on a blank sheet of paper. You get a completely new design to solve the problem. And we, from racing heads, we can't do that. You've turned up at the weekend, you've got this.
Yeah.
This is how we've got to fix it. And so there's a certain amount of bush mechanics in there. You're improvising solutions for problems that the designer out of college who's working in the design department would just redesign it.
Yeah. And
to me, that's not a solution. To me, that's an insult to the people that already bought your product.
Right.
And so we always had that different way of doing it. We always try and solve the problem, whether that was with the suspension, or whether that's with the bikes that we were dealing with, or the bikes that we were racing, or whatever it was that we were doing. We'd always try and just work within the parameters of what we've been given, rather than just saying, as soon as you say I can't, then
it's over.
You've fucked your racing effort. We can't do this because, do you know what? This is what we've got. What can we do with it?
Yeah.
Always think of the positive solution out of it, because as soon as you say we can't do this, then you've already beaten yourself. You have to just deal with the situation you're in. And we were always that was the way we just developed things. That's how we've always done it. So
And that mentality just carries through to the helping others side, right? And you just someone sends you a fork and you're like, oh, yeah, we could do this to make this better. Have you found that problem with it?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to make things better, and so many ways to make them worse. And the forks. I mean, there's a lot to do. Little things that will improve forks, and most of the bicycle forks haven't really got a good enough negative. Let's say that, as a really good example of this, the first debonair air spring from the Lyric in, I think, 2018, 2019 was a really good air spring. It gave you a lot of really well pressurized, good length of negative air chamber.
That was your go-to fork during that period too, wasn't it?
It was,
yeah.
It was really easy to set up. You could just set the damper to 4 clicks out on rebound and off on the compression side, and you could make that work for anyone from 60 kilos to 90 kilos. But that air spring worked really well because it had a really nice positive to negative ratio. Now, it was changed to a smaller air volume in the negative because people weren't getting their full amount of travel on the little anodized travel markers on the stanchion.
Yeah.
So instead of moving the anodized travel markers up the stanchion, they redesigned the air chamber, and it's not as good. It's just not as nice off the top. But you can get around that. So if I was racing that Lyric now, then I'd be letting the pressure out and putting a zip tie down through the dust seal at full bottom out, so that you've got that bit of extra negative, so that when you fully pressurize it, you don't have such a short negative anymore. It's actually only just extending into the negative because you've got almost a negative pressure in the lowers. And that works quite well for a lot of forks, actually, because now when you get to the travels of forks that we're getting, and all the air chambers are now sealed, so you're looking at forks with bushing systems that were designed for 50 plus cc's of oil are now running on 5 to 10 cc's of oil. That's not going to splash, 10 cc's of oil. That is literally 2 teaspoons.
Yeah, pretty much disappears when you put it in.
Yeah, it's no good. So because of that, the reason they've done that is because there's no room in the lower at full bottom out. The negative plate is getting to the point where it's building pressure in the lower. I think we did a test recently on one of our spring testers, and we got the spring curve from one of the manufacturers, and we're looking at it going, nah, that doesn't feel like what we're feeling.
Right.
And so we actually plotted it, and it's like, fuck, that's way out. And then we plotted just the lower graph, and the lowers, you were looking at 85 kilos to bottom out lowers.
Wow.
Just
so
lower
they were building
volume.
a ton of pressure in there.
Yeah, that's insane.
Huh.
So that removing that by dropping the zip tie down as it gets to bottom out. And like I said about this ideas having their time. There are a lot of people already thinking about things like this. So there's a company in the States who are doing transferring air volume from the left-hand side where there's little air volume in the lower, and they communicate with the air volume in the damper side, so that you get a much straighter push. And there are other companies working with the little bleed valves, so that you can easily reduce the pressure in one, and it'll come. That'll be a thing. That'll have its time, and maybe someday someone will figure out a little remote reservoir that carries the oil and squirts it back in so it hits the lower bushing at least. There you go. You can have that one for free. Off you go. And these ideas will have their time, and they'll come. Somebody will be able to afford to do it, and someone won't. And yeah. But yeah.
Would you say that stuff is the sort of biggest problems that you're coming across at Mojo these days? It's just the constant rejigging of things, I guess, more so than fixing.
No. There's stuff is looking pretty good at the moment. Mountain bike stuff is getting better. We don't see many people's problems because we've limited ourselves to working with some quite high-end brands.
Right.
So we just don't see that many mass production problems, which is quite nice.
Yeah, for you guys, for sure.
It's nice not to have to fix other people's problems all the time. So yeah, when you're working with the nicer stuff, it gives you more chance to actually do a good job with people and put the cream on top of the cake rather than trying to make a cake out of the shit ingredients. So we're less into dealing with problems now, but it's nice to sort of keep your eye in on what everything else is doing and everyone else is doing. But it's also nice not to have to do it to make money. So,
do you ever spend time on other new, like if someone launches a new product, do you try and get a hold of it just to see what it's all about?
Usually not. Most of there's some really good stuff happening in the mountain bike world. Most of that really good stuff's happening with the small, responsive, entrepreneurial companies. It's not happening with the big companies. But obviously, those are the new things that usually get the sort of time.
They're also the things that push the entire industry to do better, I find a lot of the time.
The little guys do, yes. Yeah. The little guys do. It's, we weren't the first company to make bikes with 62-degree head angles. We weren't the first company to make bikes with steep seat angles. We weren't the first company to make bikes with low bottom brackets. We weren't the first company to do any one of those things, but we were probably among the first to put all of these things together into an enduro style bicycle that allows you to ride the type of terrain you want at the type of speed you want, up and down. And that has, those numbers are appearing on more bicycles. When you look at all of the big brands, they're all talking about longer, lower, slacker, and they're all talking about being able to shred harder and ride hard and push your buddies, make it, and it's like you spend so long reading their website, you go, oh my God, I need a 120 29er as well. No, I'm being propagandized. No, I don't. I'm really happy with my bike. But it's just they're using those same buzz phrases for their marketing now, and it's quite flattering, longer, lower, slacker. Hang on, it was just 4 years ago when you were saying, you'll never get this piece of shit round a corner. What you need is 67 degrees head angle, man. It's going to be awesome. 29er. You need 2.8 tires. What the fuck happened to those pieces of shit, dude? They folded.
It was pretty funny watching that evolution through the media too. Like when I was at Pink Bike, Paul Aston's articles would often get all sorts of hate on them, all sorts of hate.
Yeah.
And then in the span of like 18 months, it started to flip pretty hard the other way. And they did that survey where it was a survey, or anyway, it was a test that they did where they had each person's perfect bike, and the
Yeah.
majority were looking at Paul's bike and saying that sounds pretty sick. And
Yeah.
you're like, hang on a second. A year or two ago, you were chastising him for writing anything near what he's talking about
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and now
No,
that's the one you want.
yeah, it's really funny. I don't know what happened to the sort of second or third or whatever it was episode of the grim donut thing that they did,
Right?
but it was like you knew that they got it thinking it was going to be shit, and you know that they wrote it and they went, actually, it's pretty fucking good, isn't it? You know,
There's some
you know
benefits
that you know that they wrote it down something really steep or something really fast and said, I see, I understand now. You know, because people have raced with a 57-degree head angle. It has been done,
there. Wow.
and if you're going fast enough and the course requires it, then that's going to be the correct angle.
Right.
There's this.
That's not to say it's right for everyone.
That's not to say it's right for everyone, but it's going to be righter for everyone than the 67 or the 66. When we started the Geometron project, I started looking at some other bikes' geometries because people were shitting themselves when they were looking at the bikes. And, we sold a few and it was easy and the journalists were really interested in them because they were different.
Yeah.
But I just thought, let's just have a look at what other people are doing. I'm going, fucking hell, there's people here trying to sell a cross-country bike with 29 wheels that's steeper than this Willier road bike. This Willier road bike has got a slacker head angle than this piece of shit cross-country bike. And you go, how is that possible? That you could have a road bicycle that's got more extreme geometry than a mountain bike. We just thought, we'll just do our thing. There's no point doing what everyone else is doing because they're already doing that.
Yeah.
We need to do something different.
And you didn't agree with what they were doing anyway.
No. And now it seems like the only thing they don't agree with, the only thing they're scared of now is head angle.
Yeah.
And when somebody finally cracks the 63-degree mark and makes that into mass production, people will have better bikes for it. The last thing they're scared of is head angle. And it makes me laugh because they all say, you can't have a head angle that much, the fork will bind. And it's like, hang on a minute. Right, let's have a look at where this fork loads from. Right, you've got more than 160mm travel, and you've got a lower that's X long and a stanchion that sticks up there. So you don't have to be a genius to put the tape measure onto the stanchion and put that from the bottom of the lower to see where the lower bushing is. The bushing overlap is usually around 110 to 120 mil in most forks. That's less bushing overlap than there is fork travel on something that is being loaded by a 29 front wheel, mostly. You've got huge leverage ratios. And so so if you go to 62-degree head angle, you have loads of bushing stiction. Well, actually, when you load the bicycle slowly, you're loading it on the spring. When you try and load the bicycle fork quickly, you're resisting it on the damper. So actually, what you're doing is you're loading one leg at a time. The spring can move as quick as it wants. The damper can't. The damper isn't supporting you. The spring is. So you've got this sort of parallelogram of the lower jiggling up and down the legs across because it's loaded from the center of the wheel. Yeah. So you look at the angle from the center of the axle where the wheel is loaded from, and then project that axle across the bush, that angle across the bushes, and it's probably almost as bad as the 62-degree head angle in the other direction. When you look at where the bushes wear, they don't wear front to back. They wear kind of 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock,
Right.
9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. They're not wearing exactly front back.
So you think if there was a more equal, what's the word? A more equal spread of that load between the spring and the damper, that the
Yeah,
bushings would wear better, your fork would work better, all that kind of stuff.
for sure, but it would be heavier, so you'd never get it past the bicycle industry,
Yeah.
because you'd need a spring medium and a damping medium in each leg. I've been riding KTM off-road motorcycles for years, and you can buy a brand new KTM motorcycle and you can flick a coin and it'll come up either heads or tails. And if you think of heads as shit and tails as great, you're going to get either a shit fork or a good fork when you buy your new KTM. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. I've got a particularly good fork on my current one. It's really nice. It's bedded and lovely. It's working really well. And that particular fork has got compression in one leg, rebound in the other. And that is, that should be creating a problem with that side loading, that offloading. But the fork weighs probably 20 kilos. So it's probably got enough material that I don't need to worry about it. And it's also got sliding bushes, so the bushing overlap increases as it goes through the travel. And it's got bleed valves built in, so I can let the pressure out and I can let it out at the height I want, so I can get the feel I want, And all of these things could happen in a bicycle fork. Of course they could, but it couldn't happen at 2 kilos.
Right. Why are we weight weenies? Where do you think that comes from?
It comes from the road bikes, I think. It comes from the road bikes. It's like everyone obsesses about the weight of bicycles, but the bicycle won't go up the hill on its own. It's not a remote control car. You can't send it up on its own, because if you could, then sure, a lighter bicycle would probably get to the top quicker than the heavier one.
Yeah.
But if the heavier bicycle had a better riding position than the light bicycle, and you put 2 riders on, then possibly the heavier bicycle is going to get to the top quicker. And then when you get to the top, the lighter bicycle might have to be carried home after it breaks. It's like, so it's I don't know why we ended up so weight weenie, but once you start being, facetious and narky with people and say, go on then, send it off up the hill on its own. So you have to get on it. You're 80 kilos, it's 15 kilos. So now that 1 kilo, that's just over 1%, isn't it? That's fuck all, isn't it? Yeah.
What if you worked on losing some weight for the rider and increasing the strength to weight? Like, these kind of things work
strength
better.
To weight. Yeah. If you want to go up the hill as fast as possible, crack on. There's lots of ways of doing that, but I would say you gain more by putting yourself in the most efficient position possible for the angle of hill that you're about to time yourself on. Rather than just trying to make the bicycle lighter and lighter and lighter.
Yeah, so the heavier bikes, in my experience, feel better going downhill.
Yeah.
And we won't get too into the e-bike thing because I want to get into that in part 2 and let you go off on it.
I will.
But I've spoken to other people and myself on my own e-bike with just lackluster suspension, nothing like what I try and have on my everyday bike.
Yeah.
And that thing rides unreal.
Yeah.
Because of the weight pushing through that suspension.
Yeah. So with a suspended vehicle, you've got it's something you hear a lot about in suspension talk. You've got sprung weight and you've got unsprung weight. Now, The sprung weight in a normal vehicle, if you're in an off-road car and you're a really big guy, you would be calculated as part of the sprung weight.
Right.
Because you are in the part of the chassis that sat on top of the spring, supported by the spring. On the other end of the spring, you've got the wheel, the brakes, some of the suspension components that are on the other side of the spring. They're the unsprung weight. So you've got a sprung to unsprung weight ratio. The better you can make that ratio, the easier the wheels can move over the bumps without affecting the chassis. If you have a really, really heavy chassis and really lightweight wheels, you can move those wheels, and those really lightweight wheels will put less energy into that really heavy chassis, or there'll be less ratio of energy going into it, so it won't move that chassis. Now, if you have, imagine that off-road car again and put really heavy wheels on it, with a really high air pressure. So when it hits the bump, that wheel has to ride over the bump. It's going to lift the chassis as well. So that's how the sprung to unsprung weight ratio works. And it's why you might find a bigger, heavier, older fashioned four-stroke motorcycle almost works better in the boulders than something racy and lightweight in the motorcycle world. And it's the same in the bicycle. But the big mistake that a lot of people made, maybe not making the mistake so much now, is to consider the bicycle rider as sprung weight. The bicycle rider is not sprung weight. The bicycle rider can be sprung weight, and the bicycle rider can be not sprung weight, can be separate.
All in one time.
So you have to look at the bicycle rider's inputs separately from sprung weight or unsprung weight. When you start to think of it like that, then you start to see that you set the suspension of the bicycle for the rider, not for the bumps. The way that the rider loads the contact patches, and therefore the bicycle, is fully progressive. You cannot be putting load onto the bicycle in the air. If you and it are flying through the air, then you are not loading the bicycle. And then you hit the bottom of a G out and you fully loaded and fully pushed into the bike. That's your maximum load from you to the bike. And everything in between, you've got every possible permutation in between directly correlating to the suspension usage. The rider isn't sprung weight. So when the bicycle wheel is touching the ground again after being in the air, there's very little sprung weight. You're not part of it. The only sprung weight is the actual bicycle chassis, the upper part of the fork, the drivetrain, some of the suspension components. That's the only part of the sprung weight. So if you imagine that the sprung weight is 7 or 8 kilos and the unsprung weight, the wheels, is probably 4 or 5 kilos, that's not a very good ratio. It's pretty close. So if you put a couple of kilos on the sprung bit, let's say you were racing EWS a few years ago and you're riding your super lightweight enduro bicycle, and you've got your backpack and you're getting battered around the place because you and your backpack are not sprung weight. And then suddenly you realize that you can put your water bottle on your bike, and all of a sudden your bike gets a little bit more comfortable. Then you can put another water bottle on your bike, gets even more comfortable. Then you can put your inner tube and your tools on the bike, gets even more comfortable. And everything that you've taken off you and put onto the bicycles made that sprung to unsprung weight. Even, there was, 2016, 17, the EWS guys started going to coil shocks, which, for most part are considered sprung weight. So that all of that really helped with making that bicycle better in terms of suspension. So yes, that's exactly what you're finding with the e-bike. And it's what we found when we did experiments with racing with, placing lead weights on the bikes. It can really help. You can remove a certain amount of stiction from a suspension system, but removing it entirely is a pipe dream. You can't remove all of it. You can't remove all of the stiction and make it work, for a weekend or even for a day. Mm-hmm. So if you can reduce that friction down to a couple of kilograms and then put a couple of kilograms on to the sprung portion of the bike, then every time the rider hits that initial bump, 2 kilograms of what would have come through to the rider, fatiguing him or her, doesn't.
So it's gone, yeah.
Yeah. There are positives and there are negatives, as with everything, but certainly in situations where the bandwidth of what's coming at you is too much for you as a rider and you're just having this hang on and take it, that adding weight to the bike will really speed things up there.
I wanted to, I was going to say that's perfect because I wanted to talk to you about the weight experiments and that, and in relation to weighting the sprung mass a bit more. Did you guys hit a limit with that, or what happened with that experiment?
I started doing it quite a long time ago. Actually, it was trying to think when it was. It's probably about 2007. 2006 maybe, because I was getting ready to go and do a desert race on a motorcycle. And on this desert race, sort of Dakar style when it was African, so the motorcycles have to carry a lot of fuel and you're riding through the desert, so you have to carry a mandated amount of water. Right. And you have to carry a certain amount of tools, which they will check in their scrutineering, and you're carrying navigation devices as well. So, and I was put in a kit on a motorcycle that already existed, a Honda CRF 450X, and I was put in a rally kit onto that. So I already had the motorcycle that weighed 115 kilos.
Right.
I think approximately. I can't remember now. Can't remember exactly what it weighed, but the kit itself weighed another 20 to 25 kilos on top before you start adding in more fuel, because I was going from 12 litres to 35 litres of fuel. So that's another, it's like 35 kilos.
Yeah.
So, in order to set the suspension, because the kit wasn't going to come with a lot of time to test, I strapped weights to the motorcycle to get an extra. I was looking for an extra sort of 20 kilos.
Are we talking like gym weights?
No, I was using things like motorcycle chains in like canvas bags strapped on really tight using ratchet, like little tie down straps. And I had a tank bag over the tank so the extra weight of the tank at this height would be represented by the chains here, and I put a backpack on at the back of the bike representing the weight that would have been in the pannier tanks at the back, and had some I think just strapped on some heavy tie levers and spanners and stuff on the side of the bash plate where I would have been carrying the tools, and I think that's where the water tank went as well. But so I'd moved the weight around as much as possible to where it was going to be. But with the same suspension setup, I noticed immediately the bike was so much better through the rocks. So I was getting less pitching and yawing as I was riding the motorcycle through the rocks. Then but the suspension was no good at speed because it was too soft then. I've added another 20 kilos and it's on the sprung weight. So I can't sort of bend my knees and soften the input. It's there on the chassis. So when I got up to speed and started hitting stuff, it was just blowing through the travel. Now it is pitching and yawing too much. It's moving around a lot. So then I'd stiffen the suspension up with valving and springs and got a really nice suspension setup, and then took the weight off and started riding it round and thought, this actually still works really well. And then 5 minutes later, you go, fuck, but I can't hang on to it now. It's like 5 minutes is all I've got with this setup. I'm not tough enough to ride this for more than 5 minutes. But that sort of adding the weight to the same vehicle that changed the whole character of the vehicle was really interesting. I wanted to try that with the racing team. Of course, none of the racers wanted to try it. I mean, you try telling a mountain bike racer that it will make you faster. Why don't you just try it? They're the least experimental people out there. But I was at Fort William with Dan Stanbridge and Julian Camillini, and I just did one run following them down. And for the first couple of minutes, there's nothing to describe the top of, from where you hit the boardwalk to where it goes in the woods. It's nothing but just brutal misery. It's just rocks, like the worst combinations of them. Some riders can ride them really nicely and make combinations and do things really smoothly. But most people will just be hanging on to get through there. And that's the part of the track where you're using all your energy. That's
right.
You need it for the last minute, but you've used it up in the second minute. So I just jumped in behind the boys, and they were on a decent run. I'm not going to kid myself; they were on a fast run. And Julian looked back and saw me at the end of the boardwalk, and it's like, oh, that's all right, that's okay. The first minute's like, it's a trail center, isn't it? It's like nothing. And then we get down to past the under the gondola, another sort of 40 seconds down the track. I've lost them a little bit because there's a couple of turns in there. I'm not as good at the turns as those boys. And he looked back and probably thought, that's him going back. And then there are a couple of turns following, but there's a couple of really brutal straights after that. And one of the worst used to be, there was a straight, almost straight, that ran into the woods. And at that point, Julian looked back and saw me right on his tail. And he did a double take. It was like a comedy. And then looked back and then looked again. And it's like, oh, shit. And then, of course, we got into the woods and they absolutely took a minute out of me in 10 seconds. It's like the skill level needed to pilot a bicycle on mostly straight lines through rocks, if you've made the bicycle work better on those rocks, is less. I still needed their skill levels in the woods, but I hadn't invested in those 20 years ago, didn't have them. So, of course, but that should have made them think about how much easier it could have been to get to the woods.
Right.
But of course, you're dealing with racers, and the peer pressure from the paddock is so great. I mean, you see that with the skin suits thing, it's like the peer pressure for the skin suits. It's just, oh, for fuck's sake. You'll wear Lycra on your fucking road bike. Oh, why? Why won't you wear it racing? And it was, Dan was one of the best. Dan Stanbridge was one of the best riders you'll find. He was a really, really good rider.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a very good racer because his head wasn't as strong as it could have been. Hopefully, he'll not be listening to this now, so he won't be able to take the piss. But Stanny is a legend, a local legend now. But the national race before the Fort William World Cup, when we did the skin suits, might have been the year before, actually. I made Stanny ride the skin suit for the qualifying. He qualified second behind Mick Hanna.
Oh, no way.
So we're talking about, we're warming up at the top. Little old Dan Stanbridge, little old Mojo race team. Every other fucker has gone down the hill because they didn't come down as quick as Dan. And he's up there warming up on his turbo trainer with Mick Hanna. He's the only other bloke that's going to be on the hill after Dan's gone. Instead of giving him the confidence and the strength of mind to believe that he deserved to be there, all he could think about was that he was wearing a skin suit and he fell off on the first turn. Second turn.
You must see how tight their outfits are getting now and think,
well, it's
any day now.
It's hilarious. And the fact that after they introduced the skin suit ban, they introduced that stupid leader's jersey thing, which Aaron Gwynn wore for most of the time because that was his dominant period. Yeah. So he's wearing this stupid pink Lycra top. It's like, it's even got a fucking Lycra label in it. You're making him wear a Lycra top over his baggy short. Yeah. And the whole thing, it's just, in a way, it's kind of pathetic. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
Was Dan running weights on his bike at the same time as those?
No. He didn't try it. A couple of the lads in the One Vision team tried it when we went 2016. We tried the 29. We tried the 29 front wheel and we tried lead weights. There were 3 lads and we were trying all sorts of different things. And they were getting really good times, like really good times. But unfortunately, the lead was a step too far for most of the lads. Jack ran the lead weight the year after, actually, and used it to great effect. I think some of the best results he's had to date, really. Whether that was, it's not
progression as well.
It's not totally that on its own, is it? It's there's a whole bunch of things that have got to come together to make a racer successful. But it's certainly given him an easier time on the hands for sure. And
so you find it's more because of what it does with how your ratios are and how the wheels are able to react to the ground. Then it's more about the energy saving than just like more grip or anything like that.
If you're moving the chassis less, then you're putting less energy into the rider.
Yeah.
And if you're putting less energy into lifting the chassis and the rider upwards, then that weight is still going forwards. That's my pretty basic.
No, that's perfect. That's easy to understand.
COD science view of it. It's like whenever you try and lift that forward moving mass or move it offline, if that mass is moving through space, if you use some energy to move it offline, then you're using some of that energy of the mass to move into a different place.
Yeah.
If the whole energy of that comes from gravity, from its weight, from its potential energy, then whenever you move that mass offline. So a perfect example of that was I can't remember the race's name. It was Fort William 2017. Scottish rider rode right round the outside of the big Tiso jump at the bottom of Fort William. And it was about 2.5 seconds faster than doing the jump, because he stays on the same latitude up and down as he was previously. Whereas if you go up the ramp 3 or 4 meters in the air, then push yourself further into the air, push yourself 8 meters in the wrong direction, essentially, the other rider that rode around it is already going down the hill underneath you, because he hasn't gone all the way up there. And then when you throw in a whip to make yourself as unaerodynamic as possible, it's almost so fucking obvious. But it's like
Peter used to say that like staying on the ground was quicker.
Yeah, and Steve Pete was a real smart racer, and almost every way he came out winning. He was the very first race I went to. I was coming down with a flipping puncture, convinced I was still in with a chance. I think I came in second from last, and Steve won that. It's like, how on earth is he 3 minutes faster than me on a 3-minute course?
No way.
It's like, it's how on earth does he do that? And I used to joke, we used to, we did a lot of national races where guys like Rob Warner and Steve Pete and Tim Pontin and Will Longdon and Nigel Page and all these sort of names from the classic,
all these legends.
And these guys are racing, and you would look at the tire tracks on any given corner, and there would be one set of tire tracks that were right out, the outliers, and that's Steve's. He would always be out there, and it'd give him less to think about. He's just, this is what I do. That's where I go. And he's a big lad. It takes a lot of turning.
Yeah.
There's no point in him doing dirty insides like Sam Hill.
Yeah.
That was not his style.
I don't think anyone can do it like Sam Hill, can they?
No, maybe not even Sam anymore.
Yeah,
Who
maybe
knows?
not.
But we had the Dirt crew, who used to be in the building that I'm looking at now, actually, where Mojo and Geometron are based. That was the Dirt magazine offices. And Steve Jones from Dirt magazine lived down the road from me in Hick country. And he had his little 104 downhill track that we used to ride.
Yeah, I used to love that thing.
Yeah,
the videos or whatever.
Yeah, we used to go there, and we'd see one week it'd be Sam Hill doing the 104, Fabian Burrell, Greg Menard, Dan G. Atherton, and it was amazing to see all those people attacking the 104. And then we watched Sam Hill coming down, and it was an eye opener, the way that he did that track, because everyone was following the brown line,
right,
and just doing a better or worse job of the brown line and pushing the brown line a little wider, because that's what you do, gentlemen of the sport. Sam didn't see any tapes. Sam didn't see any course markers. And he just went straight over the top of this one boulder, like flipping Tony Boo from the trials videos, straight over the top of it, and cut out 2 corners at fucking flat out speed. And that's that kind of obstacle flattening, or obstacle management, is what made him such a good enduro racer. He's got that ability. I saw
I vividly remember the video with Sam. I think it was one of Alex Rankin's, maybe one of the first
Yeah,
Perth ones.
yeah,
And Steve is just beside himself. He can't believe what he's seeing. Is
yeah.
it because of things like that, or was it literally just the way he was riding it other
No,
than that as well?
I think he had a bike that really suited him in that
Yeah.
Iron Horse Sunday. That Iron Horse Sunday's got really nice balance of measurements, which for a guy of Sam's height, weight, and stature really worked like a really nice bike.
Yeah.
There was a Welsh downhill series called the Dragon Downhill Series, which really helped to establish the level of riders in Britain, because essentially it was carnage. It was nuts.
Huh.
We'd just be riding down stuff that you'd be going down literally. If you could stop and have a pray, you would have done, because it's like I really don't know how I'm going to attack this section, because there is there's no purchase. It's all off camber routes, and there's nothing to catch me at the bottom other
Right.
than death
Trees.
and the angels. Hopefully the angels can catch me. But his tracks were really tough, and that was really good, because it made you reassess, what you're practicing on, what you're riding on to practice. But one of the races, we actually went to race in France. So we had this motley crew of Brits that all jumped in vans and raced in France at Metabief, and the current Masters World Champion lived in Metabief, and he spent a bit of time riding with Daniel Stambridge, who was on our team at the time, or was he? I can't remember. But anyway, he spent a bit of time riding with Daniel Stambridge and was explaining to him that there is the correct line. Use that line. And Dan was saying, yeah, but the rock's in the way. He's saying, no, that's the right line. You've got to go over the rock. So don't ride around the rock. That's the wrong line. The correct line is that one. And if the rock is in the way, then you go over the rock to stay on the correct line. And that there's like a light bulb moment for Dan. It was like, right, I need to keep my speed up. When I reach that, I need to be in a position to be able to lift that bike and over that, and I'll still have the same speed. I don't have to try and get around that freaking thing, And so it's like that incident with Sam, it's like you find the line. The straightest line down the hill is the best line down it, the best line you can manage. And I saw it so many times when I started with the enduro, the EWS racing. We're as the vets, we ended up going after. I think on. Anyway, certainly some of the races we were going after the fast lads, and you've practiced a section. You're going, fucking hell, this is hard, this is real, this is a battle. And then you come down, and as you're going down the track, you're going, fucking hell, there's a tyre track going over there. How did they get up there? Where the fuck how did they get? And then you're riding down going, fucking hell, he's got over there. No way. Who is he, Danny McCaskill? And this is the thing about the kind of top level of racers. They can ride at such commitment that they can kind of still do the pull-up that we might be able to do in the car park to show off, whilst they're at the edge of the limit speed and time it correctly and smooth that out. Whereas I'll have to slow down, go around it, make 3 corners where he hasn't even made one.
Yeah.
But if I tried it, I'd definitely be, like in the emergency room. So
it's full commitment.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see. I love to see that kind of full commitment racing. It's amazing to see people riding at that level. I just think and enduro stopped being enduro. It started being a collection of several downhill races on one day, with mechanics at the end of each, and it lost its backcountry vibe a little bit. it certainly wasn't the same for me. That doesn't mean to say that it didn't work for the corporates, because they seem to love it. But I think downhill racing already existed, so downhill racing on trail bikes really wasn't a sport we needed to sort of push, I don't think. But
Getting back to Geometron.
yeah.
So it sounds, but I'm interested to confirm for me if the catalyst to start Geometron was wanting to ride capable bikes, say downhill bikes, but that could pedal. Is that what sort of got you to start it?
Well, that's what everyone wants, isn't it? A bike that
I used to pedal my downhill bike around Squamish.
yeah, and that's, I used to pedal a downhill bike around as well, and a lot of people did. A lot of people, because they handled really well, but they pedaled like shit.
Yeah,
so if you could get one that was, halfway decent, and it got to the point where downhill bikes got so soggy and so sticky that you had to be like really, really fast to be able to make them sing.
Right.
Because, you've got that much travel and that much suspension absorption that you end up running it so hard to avoid it taking the energy from your legs. Otherwise, it won't give you any energy back. You end up hitting the positive surfaces of all the bumps so hard to try and use the energy of the ground that you're just not actually going that fast.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the trail bikes had got to the point where they'd become actually capable of, for a rider that was riding that same section slower, that is going to make different combinations than, your Fabian Burrells and your Greg Menards and your Steve Peats and, your Aaron Gwynns. The combinations that a normal rider's going to make will be better on a trail bike all of a sudden, because it's more dynamic, and instead of sucking the life out of you if you're going 10 miles an hour slower, it'll allow you to make that middle combination rather than the far combination that maybe Aaron and Steve are getting. And it allows you to be more dynamic as a rider than the downhill bike did. So there was a crossover point where the suspension for the enduro bikes, if you like, became good enough to flatter the riders that would have been riding the downhill bikes like we were on trails. And I think now there are probably very few riders who would be faster on a downhill bike. Certainly outside of the World Cup circuit, most people would probably be faster in most places on a trail bike.
Right.
You'd certainly be more accurate if you could get a dual crown fork into the mix and get the steering a little bit more accurate.
Yeah.
But that, rather than having the full 200 millimeter sort of leg sucker, having a 160, 170 dynamic, energetic ride, most people would probably be better off on that now.
And benefit from that, yeah.
Mm.
So that sort of happened around the same time, did it? You found the trail bikes were getting good enough.
Yeah, we were. I mean, enduro had started probably in the late 2000s, and I did the Trans-Provence in 2011 with an orange Patriot, which we dubbed the Port Riot, because it wasn't very stock at all. I'd put in a different shock. I had a shock on there with a shorter eye-to-eye, so that I could get the bottom bracket down and slacken the head angle. And I had a couple of little offset bushings in there so that I could adjust that to a certain extent.
Yep.
I had a fork that I'd made that had, out of all the Fox parts bins, that had the height I wanted with the feel that I wanted. And then I had a 2-degree head angle adjuster in it. So we had that down to 62-degree head angle.
Right.
It worked really, really well. It was quite flattering to ride in a lot of situations other than uphill,
Right.
because obviously I've slackened off the main triangle, which means slackening off what was already a slack seat tube angle.
Yeah.
I'd cut all the brackets on the dropper post so I could move the seat further forward, but you're still not getting into the realms of today's steep seat angles.
Yeah.
And but as good as that bike handled, there just wasn't the room, between the head tube and the bottom bracket. There just wasn't enough material in the front triangle. But on that Trans-Provence in 2011 was Cesar Rocco, who is obviously super fast downhill racer, and founder of Cero Design in Barcelona, which started doing work for bicycle companies. And he was designing, come up with a concept for Mondraker, which was the forward geometry idea.
Yeah.
So what he wanted was an XL length bike, but he wanted it on a medium height bike. So that was the idea. I want this length of bike, handlebars in the same place, but the wheel has moved forward underneath it. So he had a 10mm stem, and he had an XL front triangle length and a medium front triangle height. And I had a little ride around on the car park on it, with the brakes the wrong way around. And you can immediately see that the wheel is further out in front of you. You feel confident when you're going downhill. The wheel is just further away.
Yeah.
Because normally it would have been 50 or 60 millimeters further back underneath you. You can just see more of the front wheel. So your relationship with the contact patch is just in a better space already. So immediately then it's like, right, that's the future. So I got a couple of prototypes from Mondraker, which, confirmed the theory essentially. I did run them with head angle adjusters as well, move the front wheel even further.
Yeah.
And things started around then, and that's when we started with Nikolai making the custom frames, and that's how Geometron started from there, really.
So that was, you were already kind of going there. It wasn't like you hit them. I was of the impression that you hit the Mondraker and you're like, oh, this is the future. But it sounds like you're already trying to go there with your orange before that.
No, that's right. We had so we were also running the Mojo Orange downhill team for quite some time, and
with a tall, lanky fella.
Yeah, Ben, and and Dan Stambridge, and all the Chris Ball and Paul Angus.
Right.
Going back even further than that, we had generations of people that there's some hella names in the mountain biking that started on that Mojo Orange team, like Chris Ball, Rowan Sorrell, Dan Stambridge, all these people that come through. But Ben Cathro, Chris Hutchins, I think he's now doing Wide Open Mag, and you've got all these people. But in the middle of our relationship with Orange, while Steve was racing Oranges himself, we got a prototype that they made for Steve that was too low in the bottom bracket and that was the wrong shape.
Okay.
He said it was too big, it was too slack, and it was too low for Steve. And I thought, well, let's try it then. And we got that. And what was really funny about that bike, the first time I rode it, was that there was a couple of really tight turns on one of the steepest downhill tracks in the area we had. And it allowed me to push so hard into that turn. It's like, this is what I've been waiting for, And then that's me at 6 foot something. And then one of the other lads at 5'10" rode it, and he was faster. Then one of the other lads at 6'4" rode it. He was faster. It's like everyone that rode it, it just worked better. And it didn't matter how tall the rider was. It was just the right shape. We managed to make a shock that worked because we had enough parts that we could make a shock of the correct length with as much travel as we could manage. It made, I think we managed to get 180 travel out of it.
Okay.
So, it's pretty much what most of the World Cup races run, really, for most of the time. If they ever get more than that, it's a bit, that's a big usage. And it worked really well. And that was the go-to team frame for quite a few years, actually.
For the Mojo team. Right.
And unfortunately, instead of listening to us and making bikes that shape, but for each rider, they ended up listening to the rider, and they were making customs for some of the riders that were. You get them back, and you go, "What? Why did you ask for this one? Look at the head angle on that." It's like, oh my god! But you can't be in control of the whole process unless you're the boss.
Right. Is there one setup or even size that you find to be the most common that goes out? Is there a common one?
Absolutely not.
No.
The amount of bikes that go out identical is almost none.
Wow.
And even if we might say out of several hundred bikes in the last few years that have gone out, if we said that there were two that were identical component-wise, they almost certainly wouldn't be identical in setup.
Yeah.
They would be very different, because that's how we focus it. We try and steer the customer to the choice of components that will work really well for what the customer wants to do with the bike. And so they're hardly ever the same. And unlike anything, you'll get a run on things. You'll end up selling a load of smalls and mediums one month, and then you go, oh my god, where's this come from? Is someone really small a big influencer in the aluminium mountain bike industry somewhere? I don't know. Has just bought one or ridden one, and then the next month we'll be sat on a pile of double XL bikes that we think, oh my god, we're never going to get rid of these. There's not enough tall people in the world. And then the next thing you know, you're ordering more. So
it cycles.
Just the way things go. Yeah, it's the same when we're selling the shocks. It's like we think we can order shock sizes so that we can hold some on the shelf, and then all of a sudden everyone in the world wants one that's 210, and we're sat on a pile of 230s, and so you just can't tell what's going to happen. You just have to keep reacting.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, roll with it.
I'll make this my last question. What's the most unusual location that you've had a customer come to you for a Geometron?
We've got a group of guys out in the Philippines, and we've got another little group of riders in Hong Kong. Wow. And you kind of look at those mega cities out there and you think, that's the least sort of likely place for a big travel, big country mountain bike crew to be hanging out.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of real strong cells. You'd expect it in Pacific Northwest. You'd expect it in certain areas in Europe and the States. But no, we've got a couple. We've got a couple of guys out in those big Far East mega cities that there's little cruiser guys cruising around on Geometron G1s.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And they'll probably keep
Yeah.
growing. I guess like one guy bought it, and then next thing you know, 2 guys bought it, 4 guys bought
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, in the end, you find it very hard to be angry with the world when you're riding your mountain bike in the woods.
Yeah.
So that can only be a good thing.
It sounds like you don't, like on my last point there, saying how more people ride them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're not fussed with world domination or anything like that. You just want people to have a decent experience and enjoy their time on their bike.
God, no. We were running when we were running Mojo. It was a really successful business for what it was, and it had a huge turnover, and we had a load of staff. And as proud as I am of what we achieved as a group of people to make that happen, don't want to do it again. It'd be great if more people are riding better components on better bikes. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to prove anything else to anyone else. So that's be quite happy if we could kind of carry on doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
it's a really good, rewarding place to be.
That's awesome. How many guys are working at Mojo Geometron now?
I think we're 6 in total, including us as directors and everyone involved. So 6 in total.
Cool.
Work across both companies, really.
Yeah, everyone does a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, busy little crew, and I'm half day, half pay. So
you are.
That means that the lads have to do all the work because I'm only in half day no pay, half day half pay.
Nice.
So they have to do all the work, but they're doing a good job, good job. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up there, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for taking the time to connect.
That's all right. No worries.
And we will talk again soon. For listeners, we're going to have a part 2 that's going to tickle the mind. Chris is going to let loose a little bit.
I'm going to have a glass of wine before that one because the throat's getting really dry. So, and definitely not be so close to a cup of caffeine. I was speed talking earlier on, wasn't I?
I don't think so, but yeah. Sweet. All right. Well,
Awesome.
Thanks, and we'll chat again soon.
No worries. Thanks, AJ.
Cheers.
And that brings us to the end of the first of our 2-part conversation with Chris Porter. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen and let us know your thoughts. You can also check nsmb.com for regular MTB content. We'll be back soon with a new episode for your listening pleasure.